Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to The Takeout. Federal government shutdowns are serious business. The rhetoric around them often unserious. Now, that's not to say the politicos don't mean what they say, but only to observe, as we must, that what partisans in Congress say shifts from shutdown to shutdown, depending largely on which party controls the White House. If you seek consistency, you can only find it in inconsistency. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a shutdown constant. We'll get to the rhetoric in a minute. Some basic shutdown facts. As of March this year, there were 2.2 million federal workers. About 80% of them live outside the Washington, Virginia, Maryland area. So far this year, about 300,000 federal workers have taken early retirement or been fired. President Trump said a prolonged shutdown will allow him to fire more federal workers and inflict damage, he said, on Democrats. Part of that Democratic damage element came today as the Trump administration withheld $18 billion headed for New York City rail and subway projects. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer from, checks notes, New York. While the shutdown lasts, about 750,000 federal workers will be furloughed and not report to work. Under federal law, they are guaranteed back pay. Essential federal workers, the military, Border Patrol, air traffic controllers, ICE, other federal law enforcement, must come to work, though they too will not be paid. In prolonged shutdowns past, this work without pay dynamic has led to sick-outs and undercut things like airport security, meaning longer lines, or passport processing, gumming up overseas travel. Overall, there have been 20 lapses in federal government funding since 1976. This is the fourth full-blown shutdown, duration unknown. Republicans want 7 weeks of status quo funding to sort out future spending and, they say, address Democratic demands to extend soon-to-expire Obamacare subsidies. Democrats do not trust, they say, Republicans, and their promises to negotiate later, and say a shutdown is the only mechanism they can use to force action on health care access now. There's also a nasty debate about health care and undocumented immigrants. We'll get to that in a moment. Here, today's cavalcade of shutdown sound.
There isn't anything we can do to make this bill any better for them. We literally did not put one single partisan provision in the bill.
Chuck Schumer, at the behest of a bunch of liberal, far-left activist groups, has walked his Democrat colleagues into a boxed canyon. There's no way out, folks.
Republicans thought that they could barrel us into a shutdown because they didn't want to protect the health care of the American people. Well, now they've seen they can't bully us, they can't barrel us.
Federal law prohibits the use of Medicare, Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, and the Affordable Care Act to provide health insurance in any way, shape, or form to undocumented immigrants, period, full stop. That's the law, and Democrats aren't trying to change that. What we are trying to do is negotiate a bipartisan agreement that actually brings the two parties together and funds the government in a way that improves the quality of life of the American people.
Amid these clashing voices, there was a voice kind of compromise, a lone Senate Democratic voice, at least for the moment, using some pretty plain language.
It was wrong when the Republicans did this, and now it's the same situation now. It's actually our party that's driving it, and I think that's absolutely the wrong decision.
Pennsylvania's John Fetterman keeping it informally real as his brand. We began our coverage this evening with Nikole Killion on Capitol Hill. Nikole, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Stalemated votes today in the Senate, but lots of floor conversations and at least some lawmakers talking about probing for a compromise and a way out.
Yeah, that's right. And that is something that we haven't seen to date. So it really is a sliver of hope right now in the midst of this government shutdown. But we did notice a number of bipartisan senators huddling on the floor today during votes. Now, even though these were procedural votes, once again, to try to advance a bill, two bills actually, to fund the government, both of which failed, these conversations were constructive, according to lawmakers that we talked to. You know, basically, what they discussed, according to several lawmakers who were involved in these talks, is a bit of policy and a bit of process. You know, is there a way to do a short-term continuing resolution, perhaps maybe 45 days, to buy lawmakers more time to work through some of these thornier issues, like Democrats, for instance, have been pushing for this extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies. That being said, you know, Republicans still feel the government needs to be open first before those conversations can be had. But that was the nature of the conversations on the floor today, with, again, both sides saying that they were good. I did talk earlier with Senator Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire, who was part of those discussions, to get not only her take on the next steps, but also whether she would consider flipping her vote. She is someone who did not want a government shutdown. She is someone who previously supported a continuing resolution back in March, but so far she has continued to vote against this House-passed bill. So I asked her whether she'd be willing to reconsider her vote. Take a listen.
Some of your colleagues did back the CR yesterday, the House passed CR. Is there any scenario where you would support that if there's another vote?
I think what we need to do, as I said, is to negotiate here, to come together on how we can address the concerns on both sides of the aisle. We are not that far apart. This is not that difficult to solve. If people would just sit down. Actually, a number of my women colleagues and I have talked about the fact that if the women were in charge, we'd have done this by now.
And she is one senator to watch, most notably because some of her colleagues have voted to support the House-passed bill, like Senator Fetterman, Senator Cortez Masto of Nevada, as well as Angus King, who caucuses with the Democrats. So Democratic leaders insist that they will remain strong and not fold, but at the same time, there has to be some type of breakthrough for any type of government funding bill to pass.
With the latest on all this from Capitol Hill, Nikole Killion, thank you so much.